Hello, this is Amos Tarfa, and in this video, I just want to talk briefly about chapter 1 of our book, Can Science Explain Everything? So we're going through this book by Dr. John Lennox from Oxford University, a mathematician. This playlist has a link that will be in the description, and you can watch the introductory video I made introducing Dr. Lennox, and then now we're talking about chapter 1. As I said, my name is Amos Tarfa. I'm a medical physicist by training, and I've also gone through coursework in chemistry as well as mathematics. I'm the director of LifeSTEM Academy, where we have a science-based, science-focused program, science and math, helping students to flourish in science and math. But we also have other subjects we teach, including music and foreign languages. And so I love apologetics. I love science and I love philosophy. I love theology and studying the Bible, studying science and all of this, right? And so I've been blessed with opportunities to learn from some of the work of Dr. John Lennox. I have a few of his books here, 2084 on artificial intelligence, one on the book of Daniel, and then the book that actually partly inspired the one we're reading now is called God's Undertaker, Has Science Buried God? That's a much longer book, it's much more dense, but it goes over some of these topics. And then he has a book called Gunning for God, Why the New Atheists Are Missing the Target. We'll get some time to talk about atheism in general, but before people start giving comments without context, I want to encourage you to recognize there's a lot that could be said on this topic. And so please look at this video as just one piece that can be looked at, analyzed, discussed, and then we can look at the issues, other issues you have in other videos. We can't cover everything in a short video. So today's topic, though, is can you be a scientist and believe in God? Can you be a scientist and believe in God? So I want to read you a few quotes, give you some thoughts, and then we'll call it a day. But please like, share, subscribe. Please feel free to share this video with others as well. I'm going to mention a few scientists in this video. I've not studied their work in depth, but I've seen some of their quotes that are pretty common, and I'm going to read some of those quotes to you today. So Dr. Lennox starts out the chapter saying, surely you can't be a scientist and believe in God these days, right? It's a viewpoint that he has heard expressed by so many people over the years. But I suspect that it is often the unspoken doubt that stops many from engaging seriously with serious thinkers about science and God. Whenever Dr. Lennox hears these kinds of questions, and also when I hear these questions, I generally know that it's time for a very good long discussion. Just a few days ago, I was at a coffee shop and I sat next to a gentleman who actually brought up the same point about how science is over there, religion is over there, and then let's just leave them alone. And listen to this quote by a physicist, a Nobel Prize winner. He says, the world needs to wake up from the long nightmare of religion. Anything we scientists can do to weaken the hold of religion should be done and may in fact be our greatest contribution to civilization. This comes from the New Scientist, 18th November of 2006, issue 2578. That was from Steven Weinberg. He says the world needs to wake up from the long nightmare of religion. Anything we scientists can do to weaken the hold of religion should be done and may in fact be our greatest contribution to civilization. It's kind of interesting how scientists sometimes speak as though like we own this thing. Anything we can do to sort of advance civilization, we should do. Like we own this type of thinking, right? Science. Now, the thing that separates Steven Weinberg from another gentleman who we're going to read from now is not that one is a scientist and one is not. Both of them are scientists, but their worldview affects how they interpret the data they receive and their understanding of what science is and how science works. So let's go on and look at a story, and then we'll look at another scientist that had a different view from Weinberg. Dr. Lennox was at a dinner some years ago, and he was at Cambridge University, a very prestigious event. And during the event, you're sitting at a table, and sometimes when I go to dinner events, it can be uncomfortable for small talk. I don't like small talk, right? I want to get down to business. But in some of these dinners, you're not going to sit there trying to prove Pythagoras' theorem, right, on your dinner table. Actually, you can, using the napkins in front of you. So you just make sure you have a pen with you. But you start doing stuff like that. That's better than some of the conversations people have. Small talk that literally doesn't matter. Anyways, back to the point. So Dr. Lennox is at this dinner, and he starts bringing up questions or issues like this. He says, how did science shape your worldview, your big picture of the status and the meaning of the universe? He was interested in understanding how the wide-ranging studies had led this person, maybe could lead this person to reflect on the existence of God. So he's talking to this person about science and the existence of God. The person is uncomfortable. And basically, after the dinner, he told him, I would like to talk with you in my study. And he invited two or three other senior academics, but no other students. So they sit down and he says, Lennox, do you want a career in science? Dr. Lennox said, yes, sir, he replied. Then he said in front of witnesses, tonight you must give up your childish faith in God. If you do not, then it will cripple you intellectually and you will suffer by comparison with your peers. You simply will not make it. Talk about pressure. Dr. Lennox was faced with that issue. Now, he sat in the chair paralyzed and shocked by the effrontery and unexpectedness of the onslaught. I didn't really know what to say, but eventually I managed to blurt out, sir, what have you got to offer me that is better than what I have got? In response, he offered me the concept of creative evolution, put forward in 1907 by the French philosopher Henri Bergson. In fact, thanks to C.S. Lewis, I knew a little about Bergson, and I replied that I could not see how Bergson's philosophy was enough to base an entire worldview upon and provide a foundation for meaning and life. With a shaking voice and as respectfully as I could, I told the group standing around me that I found the biblical worldview vastly more enriching and the evidence for its truth compelling. And so with all due respect, I will take the risk and stick with it. That's what Dr. Lennox said. Now, Dr. Lennox adds that he did not know at the time, but oddly enough, Bergson, who was Jewish, in later years moved towards orthodox views of God. And in his will of 1937, he confessed that he would have converted to Christianity had it not been for the increasing wave of anti-Semitism in Europe. Very interesting. So this conversation happens, right? And Dr. Lennox has talked about this over and over again. The difference between two scientists that have different views about faith is not that one is a scientist and one is not. Look at another example he gives. He says, I learned another valuable lesson that day about the existence of a dark side to academia. In academics, let me just say this. It is sad that in academics, sometimes people don't have freedom to express what they believe about the world. And it's in really going deep into, here's my view of the world. Can I share it with you as a chemist or as a physicist? Some departments don't want to hear about your view of the world. But when we look at people like Leonhard Euler, we realize that he was a solid mathematician and physicist who also had a solid worldview that he was able to share. He lived from 1707 to 1783. What has happened in our science departments today, where you can't go from talking about your science to talking about your faith and talking about your science? Is there a contradiction between science and faith? I don't think so. Listen to this section here, and then we'll come back and talk. There are some scientists who set out with preconceived ideas. There are some scientists who set out with preconceived ideas, do not really wish to discuss evidence, and appear to be fixated not on the pursuit of truth, but on propagating the notions that science and God do not mix, and that those who believe in God are simply ignorant. This is simply not true. What's more, you don't need to have a great deal of insight to see that it is false. Think of the Nobel Prize in Physics, for example. It was won in 2013 by Peter Higgs, a Scotsman who's an atheist, for his groundbreaking work on the subatomic particles, and his prediction later proved of the existence of the issue they talk about called Higgs boson. Some years before that, it was won by William Phillips, an American who is a Christian. If science and God do not mix, there could be no Christian Nobel Prize winners. In fact, between 1901 and 2000, over 60% of Nobel laureates were Christians. I want to suggest that what divides Professor Higgs and Professor Phillips is not their physics or their standing as scientists. They've both won the Nobel Prize. What divides them is their worldview. Higgs is an atheist. Phillips is a Christian. It follows that the claim of those academics who tried to intimidate John Lennox in Cambridge so many years ago, that if you wish to be scientifically respectable, you have to be an atheist. That claim is obviously false. There cannot be an essential conflict between being a scientist and having faith in God. However, the real conflict is between the worldviews held by these two brilliant men, atheism and theism, or circular humanism and a belief in God grounded in scripture, as we'll see from some of the examples he gives. So, he's going to go on, John Lennox is going to go on and talk about atheism. In my next video, I will talk more about this topic of atheism and theism. But let me just say this as I begin to land the plane. The difference between two individuals in the field of physics or in the field of chemistry. So in chemistry, we have people like Dr. James Tour out of Rice University. We have people like Doug Axe out in Seattle, Washington. People like Stephen Meyer in the philosophy of science. So in physics and chemistry and philosophy of science, we have people that are Christians and we have people that are not Christians. We have people of faith and people that don't have faith. So the issue when it comes to scientific advancement cannot be an issue of you must choose science or faith. There's another thing at work, and that's the worldview. And everybody has a worldview. What is your worldview? What is your view of the world? When you look at the universe and the might, I look at the moon sometimes, right? I just look at how amazing the moon is. And then you think about the sun and the planets and the galaxy. Amazing stuff. Here's the thing. Did God create the world or did it come together by accident? That's the fundamental question on that level. Do we see the design in the universe being caused by a created being? Or is the universe just elegant and wonderful and, existing independent of the creator of the heavens and the earth? I believe that the universe was created by God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it makes sense that it looks the way it does because it was created by one who had creative powers. He spoke it into being, and it can be studied by people who, in math and physics and chemistry, we can study the world that God has made. Science and faith do not contradict. As a matter of fact, someone else will quote this later on in one of his books, where you see that there's a correlation, there's a relationship between science. Someone says science and faith are as opposed as the thumb is to the hand. You grasp reality better when you have both. So I'll end with Leonard Euler again, one of the best minds the world has ever had. And what did his students say about him? That this man was a diligent follower of Jesus Christ. He was a diligent man when it came to his faith. The Lutheran Church actually has a day that they call St. Euler Day, essentially. I think his birthday is in April, and they recognize his work. And I think it's in April they have that somewhere in their calendar. Not that most people talk about him, but I'm just saying one of the greatest minds we've ever got, who gave us the most beautiful equation in mathematics. Look at what this book is called. It's called Euler, the Master of Us All, written by a mathematician who focuses on math history. And I just want to say, you can do science well and be a person of faith. And if you're out there, you don't have faith, you might be a scientist, you might not, but you wrestle with this question. I want to encourage you to check out the book, Can Science Explain Everything? I want to encourage you to keep wrestling with these questions, but do not think that the answer lies in giving up one to do the other. We can do science well while we also study the world, while we also study the Word, while we also study the Bible and learn about the one who created it all. Thanks for watching this video. Please feel free to subscribe, like, and share, and pass it on to others. I'm excited to keep studying this. In the next video, we'll talk about atheism and discuss some more details there. Take care and have a blessed day.